Welcome back to the channel. I've been helping Christian singles since 2020 find their person. So, hey, now you know what I'm about. I'm all about marriage, and let's get into the topic today. So, I wanted to do a quick video that really goes a little bit more into depth about understanding masculine versus feminine behavior. Because I believe that I'll be honest, that a lot of people just don't get it. I think people talk about it, but they don't get it. They don't see the signs in their own behaviors, whether they're male or female, to the point where they can truly understand what they may or may not be doing wrong. Now, one of the problems is that when we start to talk about, how the black culture is doing things, and again, this is not just for black people, anybody can get this. But, I lean a lot into black culture because black culture, I think, is really the product of when a lot of these things get out of hand. So I do think that we can learn a lot, from that, and through that, we can actually take it to the next level, right? So when I'm talking about these main six qualities, the qualities that I'm always throwing up on the screen, and I'm always talking about how it's through this lens that is how people are being quote unquote judged out here as to see whether or not they are good quality people or they're bad quality people. But we have to recognize that to some degree, all six items are really on both men and women. And what I mean by this is that both men and women desire this to some degree. For instance, when we look at leadership, many women do want a man to lead them. Even if they have everything going on with their life, we see video after video after video that a lot of women still prefer the man to lead. And through that, we know that, again, in reverse, we know that most men would prefer, a woman to be a little bit more of a person that follows his lead. All right. So that one is a little bit in quote unquote reverse. But the rest of them, we really kind of see how both sides really want them. Like a woman wants her man to be attractive. A woman wants her man to be decently kind as far as she's concerned. And a woman does want her man to be supportive of her hopes and dreams. So we do know that these qualities exist in both men and women, and that both sides are really looking for these. However, when we talk about the big shows of display, when we talk about the major aspects of how someone is presenting themselves to the opposite sex, that's when, the dividing lines start to come in. And, like I said, I've had some conversations recently that just kind of brought this to, my mind and to my heart. So I wanted to basically talk about some of this behavior so that, we can kind of get a better understanding, right? So I figured I'd go through a few things, starting with the women and then going into the men, right? So when we start to talk about these things, and I'll start off with kindness, for a woman. So when a woman is displaying herself to be kind, this is her not showing up aggravated, not showing up upset, keeping her overall demeanor under control. Her leaning into doing nice, quote unquote, and kind things for other people. Basically leaning into that, how can I help you? How can I bless your life? How can I, say the right word to make you feel better? See, all of those things are more leaning into kindness, right? It doesn't mean that you're being walked over. It just simply means that you're not going to be the person to be abrasive at the very beginning unless you have to. So a good example of this, just off the top of my head, is in the movie Beauty and the Beast, the original cartoon. And in this, the Beast, there's a moment where the Beast is hurt. And, he's going through some things and he's just very hurt by, because the wolves attacked him and different things like that. And Belle is basically trying to help him. And she's trying to, help to heal his wounds. And it's through that she is showing kindness. Now, through this, she's actually very firm with him. And she actually kind of scolds him a little bit, but she doesn't really raise her voice. She doesn't really get all agitated. She does it in a way, that's very polite, sweet, and what we would consider kind, right? And so there is this effort for her to make his life better. But it's being better not by leading him directly, but by in the little things that she can do in order to show him kindness. This is one of the reasons why so many men really like it when women do domestic duties. All right. It doesn't always have to show up as domestic, but this is one of the reasons why, because that is showing kindness. When you're coming into his environment and you're cleaning it up, when you're coming into his environment and he doesn't eat well and you're cooking for him, these are ways that you're showing kindness, right? And see, this is why this is so important. But I also will say you might have a man that, he needs his oil changed, and maybe you're that woman. Because one of the things I think is always very difficult, when we're talking about these things, is that we can generalize to the point, okay, where people don't kind of understand where their lane is. All right. And I always say that there are different types of people that are going down different paths. And your kindness, is generally going to show up in what the man needs in his life. And I think a woman should be, have the wherewithal to understand what he needs. What does the man in front of you need? All right. And for a lot of women, especially if you run into a man that actually has a decent amount of money and he has, most of the things in his life taken care of. Okay. It might be harder for you in your mind to show him kindness, but it's really not, because you can be kind in just the way that you protect his money. And you're more like, okay, well, we don't have to go out to a restaurant. Why don't we just go for a walk? Or why don't we go to this park? Or why don't we go for a hike? Or why don't we just do a picnic? Okay, see, that's being very kind because you're considering his money. And men that are paying attention, will pay attention to that. So that's one thing right there. Another thing is support. Because women do desire men to lead, men don't generally just lead the family, from a spiritual perspective and even from a realistic perspective. They're not just usually leading their family. They're also leading in some area of their life, right? And I've always talked about women finding a man, whose train is going down the train tracks, right? Because he should be going towards a vision. And it is through that vision that man is really going to get most of the things, that he needs, not only in his own leadership ability, but also in his ability, to pay for things and to take care of, the family. So a woman should be supportive of his hopes and dreams. All right. And this could be difficult at times, especially when you don't understand what he's doing or what he's trying to do, or even when you look at the monumental tasks ahead. But it's very important for you to be his number one cheerleader and not necessarily to be his number one critic. For example, let's say, for instance, a man builds furniture. Okay, that's what he does. And you could be looking at his furniture and the styles that he is doing, and you might not like them all that much. Okay, and I can get that because, you want him to be a success. His success brings you success. But what happens when, he makes, let's say, 7 pieces of furniture, and then now he sells them almost immediately? And not just sells them, but you literally listen to the person who buys them, and that person says how awesome that particular style of what he has created is. See, you have to understand that you're just one person. You might not understand what he's trying to do, but that's when you're supposed to do your own research. If you are the type of woman that every time he builds this piece of furniture, you're like, why are you building it like that? Nobody's going to buy that. It is so unattractive. But then he has this constant amount of people that are constantly buying from him, that want his stuff, that want his style. Okay, now you're his worst critic instead of his biggest support. And when you're a critic to him, you're going to hurt him. And you're hurting him much deeper than what you believe that you are because you're so close to him. So it's really important for you sometimes, if you don't understand, for you to study and you also to pay attention to what other people are saying. Because it's like I said, I don't have a problem with you criticizing him sometimes because you want him to get better. But it's totally different that if you say, hey, I see the style of what you're doing. And while I don't, you don't have to say this part out loud, but while you might not agree 100% with his style, you're like, look, babe, why don't you upgrade to a different type of wood or a different type of screw? Or maybe you need to get some better tools so that this furniture can be more sturdy. Because when I sit on it, it squeaks a little. But if we actually upgrade to this over here, I've already done the research for you. It's only going to be $3 more, per item that you build, but it's going to be 15 to 20% more sturdy. See, that's really good critique, but it also leans towards support. Does this make sense? And then you also have to make sure that you don't critique him in the middle of him working on a project. You need to do that either before or after, because it takes a lot of energy for a lot of people to create anything. So if you're coming in right in the middle, you might discourage him, right? So it's very important for you to understand that. And that's one of those things that to me leans into feminine. And you also want to do it in a very sweet and loving way. And I've talked about this before because women really don't understand, like I say, modern women, not women in the past, but modern women really don't understand the power of their sweetness. Because when you run into a man and you're basically just touching on him and touching on his arms and stuff like that, and even if he doesn't work out, but you're like, woo, you have you been doing anything? Your arms are kind of feeling strong. And then he's like, no, I really haven't been working out or anything. But then you're like, well, ooh, you're just, I don't know what I would do if you actually did work out because, oh my gosh, even right now, you're already, and see, people talk about that as like a soft manipulation. And I'll admit it is like a soft manipulation, but that's also why I say I don't believe that, men and women can be truly best friends. Because there is a soft manipulation that goes on between men and women. And honestly, both sides do appreciate that soft manipulation as long as at the end of the day, it brings about a bigger, more, better situation, and you have to kind of lean into that and understand how that works, from a biblical perspective. Okay. Just to kind of lean into that a little bit, but I don't want to take too much time going into that. Finally, attractiveness. I'm always surprised at how many women bypass this because women are used to giving their attractiveness to the world. Okay, but one of the best gifts you can do is give your attractiveness to your man. So what do I mean by this? Well, once you're married or even in a relationship, you might spend a lot of quote unquote downtime with your man. And this is the time that you're not out and about. You might want to walk around in a comfortable shirt, some big fuzzy slippers, and maybe, your hair pulled back or in a bonnet or whatever it is. But you still have to remember that your man is still very much attracted to you. So whatever it is that makes him attractive, that that he really likes this part of you. Maybe it's your feet, maybe it's your legs, maybe it's your hair, maybe it's your eyes. Why don't you every once in a while do those things specifically for him? See, recently, because it's always funny because you get gifts and, I hear about men getting gifts for Christmas. And it's always funny because I think so many women just don't do a good job of getting men gifts. Because the gift for a masculine man is the woman. That is the gift. So a lot of men aren't looking for you to buy them more socks or to buy them a shirt. And men with, money, they've already bought their PlayStation or Xbox or TV or computer or phone or whatever it is. So they're not looking for you to spend your money per se on them. And feminine women understand this. And they will literally go out and they might buy lingerie or something else sexy, seductive, a nice dress in the style that they know that their man likes. And the gift is you presenting yourself, making yourself more beautiful for him. Do you kind of understand this? See, feminine women, again, they understand this a little bit more because they understand the power of attractiveness and how much the man is attracted to them. So if you're basically sitting around and y'all are watching TV and you have really no reason to, doll yourself up, but you doll yourself up anyway, okay, just to hang out with him. At that point, he sees you differently because he's like, wow, she'll put in effort just to hang out with me. And that elevates you. And see, that was just more of your time and your effort in understanding how powerful your attractiveness is. And see, all those things lean you towards feminine. But if you go out and you buy this guy an iPhone, or you buy this guy, I don't know, Xbox, and you already know that he has money, he has enough money where he's not really concerned about, buying stuff and getting it on sale and different things like that, how have you really helped him? See, you really were in the masculine. You weren't really walking in your feminine. And again, this is where I think a lot of women make their mistake. Now, there are men out there that like gifts and stuff like that. And you're going to find that all over the internet. But again, and that's why I say it's slightly different strokes for different folks. But if a man is fully walking in his masculine and he is walking in his purpose and he's actually doing what he needs to do financially, he don't need you to buy him anything. If he wants to go buy a car, he'll buy a car for himself. If he wants to go buy a house, he'll buy the house. He doesn't really need you to do anything for him. But if you're sitting around saying, well, I'm not willing to wear a cute outfit for him because I'm tired, he's going to remember that. Because the three main things that he wants from you are attractiveness, kindness, and support. And so now you're willing to let one thing go because it's easier. In fact, that was one of the things that came up, in the group Christian Singles Connect last year, because one of the gentlemen was saying, hey, after a long day of work, I'm tired and I'm on my feet all day, and I would love for a woman to rub my feet. And the women in the group, they were trying to pay that off. Over 50% of the women in the group said that, hey, I will pay for you to go to someone to rub your feet, but I'm not willing to do it myself. And we went through the whole thing. Was there anything wrong with his feet? Did he have fungus? Did he have anything like that? And basically it came down to the point where it didn't matter if this man, had perfect feet, no disease, anything like that. Even if his feet were like Jesus. These women were saying, I'd rather pay for someone to rub your feet, and I just don't want to do it. And that is masculine. That is not feminine. The feminine woman says, I want to rub the back of my man. I want to rub my man's feet. I want to take care of him. The masculine woman says, I will pay for this. And if you notice, that's how men do it. A woman comes and says, oh, I need a dress. Okay, here's some money. Oh, I need this. Okay, here's some money. That's masculine. That is not feminine. And I think a lot of modern women need to understand where the difference is, because a lot of women are confused and they don't really recognize that they're walking in masculine and they're doing masculine things over and over and over again. And people will say, okay, masculine energy versus feminine energy. But again, what does that really mean? How does that show up in your life? All right. So if you're the type of woman and you're like, I ain't rubbing nothing. I ain't massaging this man. I'm not rubbing his back. I'm not cooking for him. I'm not cleaning for him. I'm talking about even if that's your fiance and you're just like, no, I'm not doing it. Then you're not walking in your feminine. You're walking in your masculine. Okay. If you're like, if I'm mad at that moment, I'm just going to go off. That's what I do. And if I cuss a little bit, that's just who I am. You're walking in your masculine. You're not walking in your feminine. All of these things matter. All right. All of them matter. And that's another reason why I'm always like, women don't ever really need to give men money. That is, a man needs to kind of work a little bit. So anyway, let's talk now about the masculine side. So for the masculine, one of the first things is protection. Now, for a lot of men, this is not really that big of a problem because women have a subconscious desire just for the man to be bigger than them in some way. And I've talked about this before because this is why a man can be 6 foot and he'll be a thick guy, never really works out, but then women will find him attractive. And the reason why they feel this way is just simply because, he is, just like I say, just a little bit bigger than them. And that's a subconscious thing. However, I do encourage all men to work out. Because again, it's not about being super dude. It's just about giving her a little bit more of that sense of that you're going to protect her. Also, what I find is that protection works a lot like attractiveness, how we would lean into the attractiveness of a woman. Okay, it's the same thing in protection from a man's perspective, right? So from that perspective, the more muscles you have, or at least the tighter you are, I shouldn't say muscles, because, we get caught up in being cut. Okay, and you can have muscles under the fat, so to speak. But the stronger you are, the more the woman's going to feel protected, and therefore the stronger the attraction. And also, we know now that there's so many health issues when you're not taking care of yourself. Okay, that again, that is something for you to pay attention to, as you're dealing with that. But I actually think that's an easy one. And I think most men slide through that one without too much of a problem. The next one is provision. And the number one argument for most men is provision. Okay, because a lot of men just be real, they're just not making the money that they want to make. And I would always encourage men to do more in the aspect of making money. And also in that aspect, think smarter, not harder, i.e., think how you can fix this in a smarter way versus trying to fix it in a harder way. See, a lot of men will lean into hustle, and hustle is labor. Okay, so now you might say, well, okay, I'm working 40 hours a week. I want to make more money. So now let me work 60 hours a week, right? And let me continue to work like that because that'll give me more money. Therefore, I'll have more power and I can provide more. But I would honestly try to encourage you that if you have to do that in the short term. Instead, what I really want you to do is I want you to think on what is a better way to do this. For example, you can do a small business, and you do not have to start a small business with a small business loan. Okay, you don't have to go into debt in order to do this. Like I've told you all before, you can start a sandwich business. Not saying you got to do that idea, but if you started a sandwich business, you could always buy, $100 worth of meat, go door to door, tell people, hey, I'm selling sandwiches. See if they want to buy them and they want to get on a subscription where every Wednesday you'll bring them a sandwich. It's much better to start, grassroots, as people say, and then that way you build yourself up than to go directly into debt. Also, there's other things you can do. Like I said, you can go back to school. It doesn't have to be a college. It can be a community college, something like that. You can take classes. You don't have to go back to school. You could just simply take classes. There's so many certifications out here now in different places. You can learn a skill. There's a lot of different places where you can learn a skill, and then you can put yourself out on places like Upwork where you actually do that skill for other people. So you can think smarter and not harder. And so therefore it'll make your life easier. And you can get to that point where you might be able to make twice as much money, even though, you know what I'm saying, you're still working 40 hours a week. So you got to think that way in order to up your ability, to provide. This is not something that women are ever going to allow you to get by from. Now, how does it lean into feminine? Well, if you're leaning on her money, and when I'm saying leaning here, I'm not saying you're going in 50-50. I'm saying is she's got all the money and you're really looking, or maybe 60% or more of the money, and you're leaning towards her to kind of take care of everything. Okay. And you don't have the desire to ever be at that level or higher. So your desire is more like, well, I'll just let her do it. She likes working. She's this. You're leaning into feminine. Okay, that is what feminine is. When you're more than okay with the woman paying the bills, when y'all go out to eat, you're more than okay with her fitting the bill, blah, blah, blah. Now, remember, when you get married, your money becomes one. But still, it's the attitude of, I would rather my wife, or my girlfriend or my fiance work harder than me because I don't want to do it. That is feminine. You should be working harder than your woman. Working harder than your woman is masculine. Working less than your woman is feminine. Okay, so now you're leaning into the feminine. Okay, the final thing is leadership. One of the things that's really interesting is because a lot of people come out and they're always wondering how I'm always navigating between masculine and feminine women. And one of the main reasons is leadership. A woman, and like I said, most women all around talk about they really want a man to lead them, even very quote unquote powerful, quote unquote successful, quote unquote independent women are almost always saying that they really do prefer when the man leads them. So what is this about? This is about do every little task, or at least 80% of the task, you are taking control over. So if you say, okay, let's move into a new apartment, you're the person that takes the reins. If you're saying, hey, we need new furniture, you're the person that takes the reins. It's not that she's not beside you, but you're the one that's saying, hey, it's Saturday, it's 9 o'clock, put some clothes on because we got to go out here and look for an apartment. We got to go out here and look for some furniture. Oh, your tire is out. Let me take the car and go get, you a new tire. No matter what it is, you're basically saying, I am taking care of this, right? And when you're not taking care of it, when she has to take care of it, when she has to think about this, okay, then you're leaning into your feminine as a man, and she's leaning into her masculine as a woman, right? And I've encouraged a lot of men, if you struggle with this, you're going to have to basically prepare before time. So for instance, if you see her talking about apartments, then you need to take a week, do some research, figure out whatever it is to make you feel comfortable, and then come back to her a week later and say, okay, I know we've been talking about some apartments, so this is what we're going to do. Because I know a lot of men, they struggle with overthinking, and all you really have to do is just take some time, prepare, and then come back. Which, if that means you have to do extra work, you just have to do extra work. Okay? But the bottom line is you need to know yourself well enough, okay, to know whether or not you need to do this or not. But if you let her take the lead in like 80% or even really 60% of things, you are, as a man, you're walking in your feminine and you're not walking in your masculine. Okay? And see, that's how that works. Okay? And see, I think people keep getting all these things mixed up, and especially because the world that we live in, you really have both masculine and feminine people, right? And feminine generally goes with masculine. It doesn't matter if the feminine energy is within the man and the masculine energy is within the woman. All right? And one of the issues within a lot of the black community is that it truly is in reverse. Just the fact that the black community is a matriarchy and not a patriarchy lets you know it's in reverse. It's in reverse. Like, if I'll just be real, if you are a feminine man, it is much easier for you to date within the black community than if you're a masculine man. And a lot of black women might be listening to me say that, and they're like, "What are you talking about, Jay? That's not true." But here's the real. When masculine men come in, they come in with a whole new set of rules, okay, for women. And if the woman is not used to that, and 70% or so of black women are not used to that, then it confuses them and it makes it more difficult for them to date the masculine man. Like, I was literally out recently, and there was 2 black women at the table at this particular event that I was at. And they found out, what I do on YouTube. And so, as we started to talk about these things, I told them, I said, when I date a woman, I don't go in mean mugging or whatever, but I very softly, tell her that I am the leader. Okay. And that there is no way around this. I am the leader, but I try to lead like Jesus. I try to put her needs first before mine. But the bottom line is I am the leader. And I've had to have that conversation with lots and lots and lots of black women. And one of the things about it was, as I was talking at this table, the women that I was talking to, by their behavior, as soon as I said it, because at first when they found out, they were all like this. And as soon as I start to talk about, I'm going to be in control, I'm going to take care of this, I'm going to take care of that, I'm going to lead, there is no way around it, I am that leader, they were like this. Totally different attitude. And the reason why they have that attitude is because they're used to leading. They're either used to leading or they're used to the quote unquote 50-50. And with me, leadership, there is no 50-50. It doesn't exist, boo. It's not in the Bible, okay, like that. It's not in reality. And when we see a healthy, patriarchal man that has given his life to Jesus and that is trying to rule like Jesus, you see a very easy road. But for a lot of women, it's very scary to get on that road because they're not used to it. And so that's why you will see examples within social media of men that are 100% walking in their feminine and women that are 100% walking in their masculine, but they can make it work. And the reason why they can make it work is because, like I said, they're both playing their role, is just in the opposite gender. And I'm not here to pass judgment on people. And I've tried to tell them, if that is you and that's how you want to roll with your life, I'm like, do it. But I'm like, be the person who stands in the gap and fix it in your children. Because that's all you have to do. You can fix it in your children. You can literally teach your children, like, look, mommy right now is taking care of all these things, but in your life, lean on your husband, let him take care of these things. You don't want to take care of these things. You want him to take care of these things. And then you tell your son, I know right now, you see mama taking care of it, but I'm telling you, dude, when you grow up, you got to be it. Okay, as a man, you got to do it. And it might not get exactly right in that second generation, but if every generation for 2 or 3 generations does that, the problem will fix itself. See, we got an issue right now, okay, that we have to deal with. But we have to put in the energy so that this will change over the next 2 or 3 generations, okay, because we need it to change. But we have to do something now, okay? And I think that's the issue. And for some people, they're not going to be able to make that transition in their life from a feminine man to a masculine man and from a masculine woman to a feminine woman. And that's a very difficult transition for a lot of people to make once they turn 30. I'm just being real. And I've had too many conversations with a lot of people. But what you can do is you can put systems in place to try to fix it in your children. I mean, you could try to fix it in yourself. That's really the best way. Because children learn primarily through watching and observation. So that's the number one way they learn. So if you can fix it within yourself, it'll definitely fix by the time you get, to your children. But, those are just some of those things. So I thought that this was really important and prevalent in what we're trying to do, because people need to understand. And I don't think a lot of women really understand, okay, what they're doing, okay, that keeps them in their masculine and it doesn't allow them to be in their feminine. And again, I just encourage you all to look at a lot of old school television and a lot of old school books and stuff like that were made, before the 90s. While I love the 90s, there was a lot of really great things about the 90s. The 90s definitely started to mix up a lot of things when it comes to masculine and feminine. But if you go before that time, okay, you're going to see women who presented themselves. They were the present. Okay, they were saying, oh, I'm going to do my makeup, I'm going to do my hair, I'm going to do my cute outfit, and I'm presenting myself to the man. They weren't even looking to get the man anything. Even right now with Valentine's Day, Christmas, all these things, women get gifts. And y'all know this. Women get these gifts. Men don't really get gifts like that. And there's a reason for that. It's because most men don't want them nor need them. But when a woman is not willing to give herself, okay, and see, that's when it starts to kind of, reverse itself. It's the same thing with a lot of men stepping up. Like, I don't know any man, honestly, over 50 that really wouldn't hustle twice as hard to make more money than his wife. I actually knew a man that worked literally 30 hours of overtime because he refused to allow his wife to make more money than him. He refused. So he would rather work 70 hours a week on the job so that his money would be more than hers, okay, than to sit back and allow her to make more money. And see, those are the types of things that I'm talking about that I feel like is missing in a lot of the people now, or at least the understanding is missing. So anyway, I hope this helped. Remember, every other Thursday, we do Thursday Talks. So please come out to that. But until then, please like, please subscribe. And I'm going to see you all in the very next video.